This is going to be 25 reasons the left is losing the middle and ultimately the culture war. Welcome to Freedom to Think broadcast. I'm your host, Jeff. Today, I got a special guest in studio. It is my lovely wife, Keegan. Thank you for joining me once again. Very popular request. So between our video on Ghost, that reaction, and then the newest with Jason Aldean, try that in a small town. People are chanting all across the internet, more Keegan, more Keegan. But let's get right into it. This is going to be in no particular order. We just spitfired through the list, and we'll have a little bit of commentary to bring some receipts kind of backing this up. First thing on the list, cancel culture and people losing their jobs over political stances. There's a lot of people who've been put in a weird situation where they're not able to align or vocally align with what they agree with at the fear of being rejected or attacked by cancel culture.
I'm sure you can't relate to that.
Yeah, that is true. So I lost a gig for several $100s, which for me was pretty awesome, and I didn't get to do that. And then suspension without pay and kicked out of my office for several weeks for other reasons. But yeah, that is totally true. Number 2 is Disney losing hundreds of millions of dollars in their last 8 or so projects. These new wokeified everything that they touch have just been hemorrhaging money nonstop.
Well, other than that, they're just not good anyway.
Yeah, they've totally given up on the story and the plot just to satisfy the woke quota in each new project. You just told me Snow White was the oldest animated Disney movie ever.
Yep, 1937 was original.
And they're now remaking it into absolute garbage. If you want a whole video on that, let me know in the comment section, and I'll go right into Disney and their absolute fall from grace into the woke garbage heap. Number 4 is Bud Light. Bud Light was the #1 beer selling in the U.S. I don't know why. It sucks.
Yeah, I agree. It's not very good.
I didn't drink Bud Light before the Bud Light controversy, but I did find Yuengling Premium beer, which is a cheaper version of their traditional lager. It's pretty amazing. It's very cheap, and apparently Yuengling is making a bid for #1. And Bud Light's like out of the top 5 or out of the top 10 at this point. They're just
I'm pretty sure it's out of the top 10.
They're just absolutely getting their ass kicked. The Dylan Mulvaney sponsorship situation was a pretty bad idea.
I mean, you have to know before that that's going to fail. There's no way a smart business person would do that. It has to be for other reasons.
I'm guessing ESG score related type stuff, like pressure from big mega corporations.
Well, just for the point of pushing all that agenda and stuff. It's not for actual sales. It's obviously a terrible sales decision, marketing decision.
Yeah, it is. Now, to piggyback off of that with a terrible marketing decision, we get to number 5 with Target and their unhinged Pride Month, we could say. They had tuckable undergarments in the children's section, and the books and the slogans, the rainbow everything. I did a whole reaction video on a song called Boycott Target right after that. It definitely blew up in the culture. And as you said, my sister, who is not a political person at all, was like, yeah, I'm not shopping at Target with my kid. Number 6, a personal favorite, Drag Queen Story Hour. What are your feelings as a mother of small children in school?
Oh, it's awful. But my favorite was when, I don't remember where I saw it, but somebody was just questioning them, and they're just like, well, why do you need kids there? And then they got all butthurt and had a hissy fit about it. And I mean, it's a really good point. Why do you need the kids there? Just go do it for other people in that group. Why does it have to be there?
Yeah, they had the pride parades where they said no kids were allowed at these events. And then they canceled the events instead of just having them for that community, as you said.
Yeah.
Like, why do the kids have to be there?
Exterior motives, I don't know.
I just think that that's something that universally people disagree with, Drag Queen Story Hour. And as it keeps coming out that a lot of these people who are participating are weirdos with criminal histories and, you know, being dragged off to jail for, you know, issues with children.
Well, I think it's good that it's, like, crazy enough that the general population's just like, no. It kind of opens your eyes to the weirdness. Like, if it's just a little bit weird, it's not really, like, alarming. But if it's, like, to that level, you're just like, no, something's not right with that.
Number 7, everyone hates. High gas prices. There's a lot of people that would argue that it's a very complex and nuanced market. The president and one side of politics does not affect the price of gas at all. So I'll just let Senator Hawley tell you.
Here's what your president did when he first came to office. He immediately re-entered the Paris Climate Accord. He canceled the Keystone Pipeline. He halted leasing programs in Anwar. He issued a 60-day halt on all new oil and gas leases and drilling permits on federal lands and waters. That's nationwide. That accounts, by the way, for 25% of U.S. oil production. He directed federal agencies to eliminate all supports for fossil fuels. He imposed new regulations on oil and gas and methane emissions. Those were all just in the first few days. Are you telling me that's had no effect?
Yeah, when gas prices are up, you got to ship everything to the store. All the store stuff goes up. Can't afford groceries. With other reasons, too, that the food and stuff went up.
Yeah, energy costs going up makes everything go up. And everyone has felt that.
Labor going up causes food to go up.
Yep. So basically being broke asses making the same money. All of a sudden your money's not worth anything. Number 8, pandemic relief, as in the months and months of freeloading and handouts decentivizing the workforce. And now we're paying for that.
Yeah, just productivity goes down, and then it gets people in the habit of, like, looking for someone to provide for them, not have to work for it. Oh, I think it was just a little bit of, like, a trial run for the communism, if that's allowed for me to say that on here. So I don't know. I don't want to get you banned. Again.
Yeah.
But I think it was just, like, kind of like a test run of the communism in the United States, because it's like, you know, they give you money, they're like, oh, you'll have an easy life, we'll take care of you, but then they kind of dictate how you're taken care of, and we provide your medical treatments, and we'll give you only this amount of money for, you know, non-animal byproduct food or whatever. Like, we dictate what you eat.
Yeah. So you want your carbon credits run out.
Oh, yeah, the carbon footprint. No electricity in July, you know, no AC.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's too bad for the environment, you know.
Yeah.
We just have to have you die of a heat stroke. So this in the South in July, you know.
Yeah, the brownouts in the heat of the summer in the South is probably going to take out some people. I mean, I've heard they had that in California already, where stuff
which is a little bit more mild too than here.
Yeah, it is. Number 9, which is going towards parents with children, is the gender ideology being taught in schools and all of these woke indoctrinated teachers, which are coming fresh out of college, and they're running these classes with these kids.
Yeah, also with COVID, we had a kindergartner at the time, and you kind of see exactly what they're doing in schools, which was good, and that good that they kind of exposed themselves for what they were teaching in school and stuff. So, like, she couldn't even read yet, so we had to do everything with her. So I knew exactly what she was doing in school, which down here was fine, but not everywhere.
Not everywhere.
You're just like, oh, why are you reading this, like, R-rated book in, like, 5th grade?
Yeah. We're seeing outrage about banning books. Like, people are equating Ron DeSantis to, like, Nazi Germany with book burning.
Oh, yeah, we saw
Except-
some of the titles, too, of those, like, some of the covers and stuff. I'm just like, I don't even want to see that as an adult. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
You put that in schools.
I'm just like, is it book burning and book banning to get rid of what you're saying, like really nasty kink sex stuff in elementary school libraries? That's just the average person, especially the average parent, is siding with that not being exposed to their child.
Yeah, most people would.
Most decent people would. And anyone who's centrist or just left or whatever, you can't argue for that. You got to be fully like cuckoo to be on the train that that's an okay thing, or just lying about it because you're okay to do so. Number 10, demonizing animal byproducts for sake of being green, ultimately wanting control of food production. Now, I know that you follow a lot of people who are in the food production business, either, dairy, farming, etc. How strong is the pushback against their industry from the average person?
Oh, it's like tons. There's tons of pushback from it.
A lot of people support the farmers and steak and milk and cheap food. Mm-hmm. And then it's psycho, wild, crazy activists who don't know anything.
Right.
Who are fighting against these people.
Yeah, it's just kind of like false information, like a lot of other things from the media. So, like, example is like veal. They're like, oh, yeah, they kill them like right after they're born for veal. It's like, no, they're like 6 months plus, which is older than pigs and chickens when you eat them. So, yeah, they're just like, oh, yeah, they're like not able to move and they're eaten on like day 2 or something, which is definitely not true. They're like 6 months plus old.
Because I want food that's good for me. And animal protein is fantastic for you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is cheap. And then you look at the store and you see the like meatless patties on clearance over and over and over again because no one wants that crap.
Yeah.
But they're trying to push it and they're trying to act like that's the future. That's what you're going to be allowed to eat. That's all. And so I don't want bugs and like...
You don't want bug burgers?
Yeah, I don't want bug burgers and them basically using cancer cells to replicate tissue to make fake meat and feeding us lumps of cancer. That's disgusting. Mm-hmm. I want a steak. So, but then they lie, like you said, with the veal thing.
Where they're not actually like 1 week old animals. They're like 6 months old. So it's just a lot of things that they just kind of mislead on.
Right.
So, and they're like, oh yeah, like the dairy cow or the dairy calves like cry and whatever when they take them away. Dairy cows are actually terrible moms. Like, unlike beef cows it's because of the docility that's bred into the dairy cows because they have to work so closely with them in the barns. Whereas beef cows, they just kind of put out in the field and then they're actually really protective mothers. So the docility was bred into them to be able to be worked with closely with people in the barns without injuring them and stuff. So they're actually very nice, friendly. But it took away the motherhood trait.
That was so awesome. That was so good. You just pulled that out of nowhere. Okay.
But yeah, the dairy cows do not care about the babies. I've actually seen tons of videos of them stepping on them. And they've had like broken legs and stuff because like moms just do not care. Like, don't acknowledge them, nothing. So
that's kind of rough,
yeah,
actually.
It is.
they're just bad moms.
They get F for motherhood.
All right, number 11, train derailment and toxic spill. With all they've pushed on us about this environmental crap, you would think they would be chomping at the bit to scream about the unsafe railways that need to be upgraded, and then the toxic crap that they're carrying on them spilling into water. That's like the ultimate no-no for anyone who cares about the environment, is poison in the water supply. Killing all the animals in the water supply. And I think it was like 7 of the scientists who went to go check it out came down sick afterwards. I hope they're okay now, but who knows?
Yeah.
People
We haven't heard anything about it.
People were like tapping the water, and you could see just like the film of chemical in there and fish floating everywhere. And the federal response was just pathetic. That's basically what people saw. And most normal people think that's bad, and the response should be huge.
Yeah, you would think that you would send aid when some kind of catastrophe happens unexpectedly. It's usually what you do, you know, for hurricanes and stuff like that. Usually you send aid. Water, you know, supplies, something, acknowledgement,
Yeah.
Condolences,
A letter.
a letter.
Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, number 12, we've had 43 signed, sent, delivered aid packages sent overseas for this war with Russia that we're having, proxy war. We don't know exactly what the $100+ billion went to, but there's a lot of things going on here that could use some of that money.
Not to anything specific. So, could be to artwork. I don't know.
It's like The Office when he sends generic giant check to science. with
Yeah.
the stripper.
It's like, make sure it gets in the right hands.
It gives it to the stripper.
But they want itemized everything for what you spend your money on.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
it's-
87,000 IRS agents to come, you know, give you a shakedown. But then they send 100 billion of our dollars out with no itemized nothing. And, I mean, Hunter Biden's in court right now for tax fraud and a gajillion other things. Bit of double standards there. Number 13. Apparently minor attracted persons is a thing now. When I was young, they were just pedophiles. Apparently it's a protected class by the media, by several activist groups.
That's who's going to the library.
That's who's going to the library. In drag.
And drag.
Carrying those books to load on the shelves. You know, that's kind of what people are starting to put two and two together, that the psychotic activism that's grooming children is also the same activists that are trying to protect predators of children. And it's like, are you guys all just child predators? Because that's kind of the vibe that we're getting. Everyone who's decent is pretty firmly against that.
Explain your alternative motive for what you're doing. What's the point of Drag Queen Story Hour?
I mean, I think it's diversity and inclusion.
Oh, yeah. The 5-year-old needs to know.
Yeah, the 5-year-old needs to see the dude with, like, the devil horns and the crazy stage makeup and, like, swinging the bottom of the outfit. That's what the kids need.
Yeah, my question, though, is, like, what's up with the people taking the kids to the story hour?
Yes.
The Guardian taking the kid to the story hour? What's up with that?
That's a great question. It's like I'm winning woke points and, like, sacrificing being a good parent in order to get that. That's a big thing. That's such a big thing right now. Now, perfect segue, number 14, the movie Sound of Freedom, which if you haven't seen, I've put months of work into promoting this movie. I have my own playlist on the channel dedicated just to content I made for it. And right now, it is a massive success at the box office. It has brought in 10 times what it cost to make, which is a great return on investment for a movie. They continually attack the movie. There's hit piece after hit piece after hit piece. There's people trying to discourage you from talking about it. There's people trying to stop you from seeing it. There's a really weird coincidences happening where, like, AC's not working, audio's not working. They're printing the wrong name on the ticket and then sending you to the right theater. And so other movies are getting credited towards the movie. I mean, there's just all kinds of weirdness with it. Please, if anything weird like that has happened to you, comment below. The success of that movie with a grassroots movement with a very little advertising budget and all of that is just showing that the culture cares about that issue.
Children are a uniting thing, so.
It is. And there's kind of a duality. There's an extreme duality to the sides of the spectrum and how they've responded to that issue and the movie. Donald Trump invited Tim and Jim to Mar-a-Lago and featured the movie in front of, you know, his big crowd. And then afterwards said that it was like a great thing and we need to put child traffickers to death penalty.
I mean, if you can prove it, who's opposed to it?
Well, I can tell you who's opposed to it.
Well, I know who.
The duality is the media is saying this is pushing conspiracy theories, even though it's based on a
Okay,
true
you're only
story.
opposed to it if you're in it. Like, let's just be real.
Well, I mean, I feel that. I feel that.
Or you're, like, directly, closely. I mean, you got to be, like, close related to that to not be opposed to it.
Right. Or blackmailed by people who are involved.
Closely related. Okay.
Still closely related.
Like, very closely related to. Yeah, that's true, you know.
Yeah. And speaking of that, the Biden administration downgraded international child trafficking from their, like, list of importance right on the heels of the movie doing well. They took it off the list of important things to deal with. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty big opposite response from one side of the spectrum to the other. And I don't think the middle appreciates it very much.
Well, to piggyback off that, too, Tim had gone on Don Jr.'s podcast, and you know how they're like, oh, yeah, it's a lie or conspiracy theory or whatever stupid thing they say.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he said on the podcast, he's like, yeah, we're going to, like, interview some of the kids next month. So that'll be kind of awkward because kids don't really lie.
Yeah, kids do not lie nearly to the level of adults. Sometimes it's unfortunate. Your kid's like, hey, Daddy, kind of looking pretty fat.
That's true.
You're like, thanks, kid. I know.
You could have said it a little nicer, but thanks.
Yeah. So when they interview these kids that he saved, which the movie's based on, that's going to be a pretty eye-opening thing for some people to think it's fiction and just a good fiction story, and, you know, a big slap in the face to all the people who are lying about it on media circuits nonstop. Number 15 is a policy at the border. The open border hurts the entire country, especially the border states.
Yeah, I know Texas and Arizona aren't thrilled.
The long story short is there's a mass quantity of illegal immigration happening, and it's totally and completely policy driven by one side of the spectrum, not the other. And unhinged illegal immigration is a terrible thing. It raises crime. It creates black markets because you have the cartels run the border. They run people, drugs, guns, all manner of illegal activity going through an open border. And it's very difficult to track and prosecute people who are invisible to the country.
There's no accountability with a social security number or anything. So, yeah, you don't even know you're here. I believe it was Abbott. Governor Abbott, he's the Texas governor.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, I believe Abbott sent busloads of migrants up to New York City. Mayor Adams wasn't too thrilled having to deal with buses of migrants up in New York City. It's like, here's a little taste of your own medicine, buddy.
But it's a sanctuary city.
It's like, good, we'll send more. We'll take the people you're allowing in, or we'll send you the people you're allowing in that we're having to deal with the crime rates and all the problems that come with illegal immigration.
Yeah. That's the danger of liberal virtue signaling, is Trump closed the border with the help of Tim Ballard from Sound of Freedom because he heard about how terrible that was. And then all of these liberals came out saying, oh, you're such a racist, and any illegal migrant who, you know, flees and seeks asylum can come to our sanctuary city. Knowing the border was closed and not very many would come illegally. But then when Biden opens it, as you said, they make them live up to the virtue signal.
Well, all these countries are like dumping out their prisoners. They're like, we don't want to deal with these people. You can go to America. They can deal with you. It's like, oh, yeah, that's who we want.
It costs
That's
a
who
lot
we
of
want
money
to come in.
to feed prisoners.
Yeah, it's like the worst people of
The world.
the world. Yeah, basically.
Like the whole world is dumping their prison system and saving those tax dollars and just sending them to the United States.
It's like, oh, yeah, we got an island of prisoners. Just let them go through the border. They're fine. You know, they won't cause any problems.
Yeah. Number 16, fentanyl. It is a gigantic problem. There's a lot of people, they've come in my comments, and I've just been reading, and the statistics are nuts. I've seen that fentanyl is the largest killer of young people in the country right now between 18 and 49. All the other policies that they're trying to push and enact and enforce on, like masking, gun crime, all these things, nothing compares to that very preventable issue.
With that age group of people, that's your working class. Like, that's your working class you're taking out right there, too. Like, your upcoming.
That's true. And your military force.
And military, yep.
So where's the fentanyl being made? Mostly China. And then it gets here, how? Through the open border. So there's a lot of people that are making these connections and seeing that one side of the spectrum is pushing for this to be able to happen, and then the other opposes it vehemently.
And what's the benefit of it? Like, there's no other side of it. What's the point of it, like, anywhere?
Speaking of fentanyl, number 17, defunding the police. After the George Floyd riots, there was a big call for these protesters to be able to continue, to be able to be bailed out. You had Kamala Harris go on TV saying that it was a movement and they weren't going to stop and they shouldn't stop. And they were praised as mostly peaceful protesters.
I think Jason pretty well covered it in the song. Being violent for no reason, destroying cities and stuff like that.
That is absolutely true.
Nothing, no penalty or anything for just burning down cities literally and being a safety hazard for, like, normal people in the city.
Yeah, the crime is so bad. There's people who leave their trunks open and car doors open so that people don't break the windows. So they just invite them to search through the car for whatever and hope that they don't mess it up or try to steal the car or anything like that, because there's so much crime. And
no repercussion for it.
Yeah, they legalized theft. They made it so you could, like, steal less than $1,000 and, like, you won't get arrested.
Why would you work for money, you know, when you could just go go loot just as a hobby, you know?
Dude, you know how broke I am? You know how fun that would be to just, like, I can, like, 998, 999. Ah! I'm walking out with this. And then you just, like, sell it for half the money and then repeat. Like, are you serious?
Now they're having to close down stores and stuff in California because, like, that's obviously...
It's not sustainable business.
Yeah, it's not. You can't just lose that much inventory.
No.
Have to redo your windows all the time from broken into, all the damage.
Right. But there was, from those riots, from the Summer of Love, whatever, like several $1 billion of damages, and it was framed by the media as mostly peaceful protesting. And
Mostly.
But then on the other end of the spectrum, which is number 20, is the sensationalism around January 6th, where they say that it was worse than 9/11. Tucker Carlson and many others have leaked, shared, and reviewed footage that's been released since the time showing people being invited in, people being escorted around by police, taking selfies, little grannies with their flags, not really hurting anything, people just thinking that they were peacefully and patriotically protesting, not trying to do anything harmful. And the few people that were instigating, sure, absolutely they were a problem, but they weren't 9/11 level.
Oh, yeah, there was supposedly one body. Like, how much damage was done from 9/11?
And it was one unarmed protester compared to, like you said, how much was from 9/11. Oh, it's insane comparison. All right, 21. This is a favorite of mine. The left is losing the middle because everything is racist except racism.
Just like when they can't think of an answer. They're just like, well, it's because you're a racist.
Yes.
What does that even mean? What does being racist even mean?
The expert on racism, Ibram Kendi, said that...
So racism, I would define it as a collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity that are substantiated by racist ideas.
You don't use the word in the definition.
Right. So he didn't know what he was talking about. He's just a communist.
Dick. Yeah.
Take a look out of starboard.
Oh my.
Probably have to censor that. There you go.
Don't get banned again.
I don't want to get banned again. So the left has been hurling the accusation of racism to just about everyone for just about everything. So coffee is racist, sleep is racist, waking up early is racist.
Being white is racist, probably.
That's a big one. That's like a super huge one. Automatically racist if you're white. White supremacist.
Anything that's unliked, just racist.
People are over it. They're sick of hearing it. And they're so lacking in self-awareness that they don't think it's racist to assume that people like me can't get an ID to vote. Or Joe Biden saying, like, we don't know how to use the internet or computers. Or, like, I'm just like, I can get an ID and I can use the internet. Like, that's pretty offensive. That's actually kind of racist. It's totally unreal. Number 22 is them woke washing the military. The military is supposed to be a completely political neutral establishment based on meritocracy and effectiveness in battle and destroying the enemy. That's it. So their constitutional focus, they take an oath to protect and defend us and the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And instead now we have people focusing on white supremacy, white fragility. They got the gender ideology weirdness in there. There's a bunch of people who are...
They had like the two moms ad for the military.
Yeah. It's like, really? You had to
How
have
is that even relevant to the military?
And it was like animated. And I'm just like, really? You got like an anime chick with two moms talking about how great it is. Now she's in the military.
It's like nobody in the military cares. Like, how is that? That doesn't matter.
It's like, can you? Yeah, no, I can't even go there. We can't even go there. It's very offensive. So the military is basically committed to activism over effectiveness, and we're seeing that in policy decisions, leadership decisions, and unfortunately, with number 23, the really horrible Afghanistan withdrawal, leading to 13 of our people losing their lives.
Unnecessarily.
Completely unnecessarily.
I think that's the worst part, is that it was totally not necessary.
Right. I mean, they could have offloaded. They left $80+ billion worth of gear, and that gear doesn't just rot in 5 seconds. Like, our grandchildren are probably going to get into some kind of a conflict, and they'll still have that stash of gear, and that's what they're going to use against our... So our next of kin are going to fight against the gear, the top-level gear that Joe Biden left to the Taliban. That's absolutely unacceptable. It should have been brought back or destroyed, not left to them. I think the worst part was Joe Biden checking his watch because he was probably late for bingo or ice cream or something.
Yeah, I remember that. It was rough.
Most people are pretty respectful to the military, regardless of whether they're heavily political or not. So a big disregard for the military and sabotage of the military effectiveness is pissing off people all throughout the spectrum. Number 24, dualities of the pandemic. There were fewer deaths in Florida than New York, even though Florida had a much different restriction level and higher elderly population than New York. So just on those metrics alone, you have older people and no restrictions, or at least more free restrictions. And they were not losing people at the same rate as New York, who was very heavily restricted.
It's hard to beat Cuomo sabotaging the elderly.
Yeah, I have family in healthcare, and so I had heard early on that there was really a lot of cosmic weirdness to them putting elderly positive patients in the nursing home. I mean, the only thing that would do is lead to higher numbers of casualties, and that's exactly what happened. And they use that hysteria force harder lockdowns in New York and across the country, because I think there were 5 governors that issued those orders, and they were all from the blue side. Now I'm fresh off a ban, so I don't know exactly what is acceptable here, but let's just say that the restrictions that a lot of people pushed in the media, in the government, in the big industry, were not as effective as they claimed they were. Were not as possibly safe as they claimed they were. And I'm pretty frustrated that you have a control group like Florida, like North Dakota, like some of these other countries far off and away that did not participate in the hysteria and madness and restrictions. And it seems like all of them were doing just fine. And then the places that followed every single thing were not doing fine. So it seems like they kind of screwed the pooch on what you're supposed to do in that situation, and they just won't accept it. And so now all these people in the middle who were not political at all, who were like, hey, why couldn't I do this or this or this or this, and you and your friends can go do whatever, and then it didn't even lead to a positive result, they don't want to vote for those people again. The left and the far, elite people on that side are losing the middle people that just kind of want to be left alone. That group of people. Like, they didn't get left alone. You got locked in your house.
Which then led to other problems. Didn't really solve anything, just really led to more problems.
Number 25. Hunter Biden. Seeing now, with Hunter Biden getting his plea deal rejected completely, the fact that the entire establishment got together, worked together, big tech, the media, the feds, to censor and silence the Hunter Biden laptop story was unreal. And it became a giant turning point for a lot of people. They said something like 16%-ish of people would have voted differently if that was not a censored story. If they knew the truth of that before the election, things would be different. But now it's gone so far the other way. We're seeing the business deals that Biden had with his son, with Burisma, with China, with all these people. There's audio tapes, videotapes, there's pictures, there's emails, there's WhatsApp messages, there's tons and tons and tons of evidence.
Just nobody to enforce it.
And no one to enforce it. And people are sitting there going, wow, why is the mafia running the show right now? This is kind of crazy. Conversely, over time, we've seen that everything that the establishment has stacked up against Trump has fallen over because it was a bunch of crap. So it's just fake allegation after fake investigation after fake hoax after, there was the Russia hoax, the PP hoax, there was the soldier bounties from the Russians, there's, the kids in cages, which Obama built the cages, and it's just such a weird thing that as you pay attention, you see they're hurting one side and protecting the other side. Basically, everything that like a mainstream lefty thinks of Trump, you just paste Biden's face right on that, and that's actually closer to what's actually happening.
No evidence for any of those scandals for Trump. Can't produce anything for receipts.
They say they have the evidence, they've seen the evidence, and then they get to court and
share it. Share it with everybody. We want to see it.
They get to court and they're like, oh yeah, no, we didn't actually have anything. We were lying.
Fake phonies.
It's fake phonies. And then they get back on network TV and then pretend that the trial didn't even happen and then lie some more.
They're like, oh, UFOs.
And now it's UFOs, yeah. Hunter Biden's plea deal goes out the window. Hey guys, there's UFOs. We've known since like the 30s, but today we need to tell you. It's very important today we talk about UFOs. It's like, okay, I don't give a shit about the UFOs. Let's talk about Hunter Biden's business deals with his dad, who's the president.
You could pretty much do whatever the hell you want when you got the media distracting and covering up for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Like I said, we got the really amazing Sound of Freedom movie, and it's like hit piece after hit piece on it, and then they're trying to talk about Barbieheimer, where it's like the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer are like two movies that came out, and they're trying to like just talk about how great these are. I haven't seen either of them, so I can't really comment on those two. The fact that they're just trying to distract from the massive success of this independent movie that has a purpose and that's just blowing everything out of the water is really funny and curious. And you can see the sides are aligning. And most people, most good people, are falling away from the left side of the spectrum. Because we are seeing like a grassroots, we the people movement against the establishment, the elite, and seeing, as you said, during the pandemic time period, Gavin Newsom could go to dinner with his friends. Nancy Pelosi could go get her hair cut. Obama had hundreds of people at his birthday party. But you and me couldn't see my sister at the hospital with her newborn. And you couldn't go to a big event with your friends and family. And nobody could properly bury a relative. They're like, nope, we can't get together, even for a funeral, even to see them off at the hospital on their, deathbed. Like, the rules for us, the peasants, compared to the elite, and they loved every second of it. And that's why the middle has left the left. So now we're in a situation where every time the elite and the establishment attack something, the people attack back. And just now, Jason Aldean put a song out we did a video on, which I'll link to this, was Try That in a Small Town. And it was referring to the madness of BLM riots and generically high crime areas and all of the policy that has led to these things happening. And people from tight-knit communities, from, raised right families, would not stand for it in their small town. And it's kind of, as you said, a dare. Mm-hmm. It's like, don't try that here. Like, I recommend you don't. After being demonized and attacked by the left and by the establishment elite, was removed from CMT, and they tried to cancel Aldean's song from May. It came out in May. And the second CMT did that, it popped into these circles and went to the moon, #1. So the main body of us, the silent majority, as people would say, includes the right, the center left, even in some cases, because I see plenty of people come in that are classic liberals, and they're more on the RFK Jr. side than the Joe Biden side, and it's not even close. I think the establishment is showing its ass, and there's only the useful idiots left who are on that side. So
you can tell what the culture wants by what they put their money into.
Anytime there's a cause that cancel culture attacks, the kind of we the people movement is like biting back by hyper supporting the person who was attacked. Like the Marine that got charged like 15 years in prison for choking out the person on the subway who was like threatening to physically harm people and women.
Who was like on drugs and...
Yeah, had like 50 arrests before that.
Yeah, it's like you're attacking people. Like, I don't care how gentle he was subduing you. Like, that's your own damn problem if you're going to attack people in the subway. The culture changes when people are affected directly by these things. And it's different people get affected in different ways. Like, military families are going to be really upset about the Bagram thing. And people with kids are going to be upset about the schools and the library drag story hour and Target, Disney, them putting like trans stuff in children's movies, them making like half shirts for kids to wear, the girls to wear now.
The crop top belly shirts for
the like 5-year-olds,
5 and 7 and 10-year-olds. And you're just like,
really?
Who designed this? What is this for? My kid's not wearing that. Gotta calm the rage. gotta cool off.
And then obviously everybody's affected by gas and energy prices and food and things we all have to pay for. Basic living expenses with inflation going crazy, so everything costs more while you're making less. People don't like having less money to spend freely on what they want. Instead, you're having to put more money into things that you need while making less, getting worked harder. I think that most people want to be just like left alone to live their lives, and that's not allowed anymore. Like they keep prodding in all these different directions, and people aren't happy about it. Rightfully so. Like, just leave us alone.
Yeah.
But no, they're like, no, we were on a power trip. And then people, like, when they feel things directly like that, they're like, no, actually, I really don't like this.
Yeah. I mean, what I think a prime example is The Office. Because we both like The Office. We've watched it innumerous times. And it's a very progressive show with a very progressive cast, with very progressive writers that are on the show. All of those people are like massive left-wingers. And the show was amazing. It was like perfect even.
It was hilarious.
It's so funny. It was just, they were on top of everything with that show. And at that time, like, that was entertainment. It was just generic. What is the funniest thing? What is the best thing? What fits the story best? Like, that was what gets written into things. But now, those left-wingers, all the left-wingers that are on The Office or were on The Office, they couldn't recreate The Office. They morally have chosen that, like, that's not acceptable anymore. But people on the right side would still think it's funny because it is.
Nobody can take a joke now, so it's like it's funny. Like in what you were saying, like your Mexican family, wherever they give you these outrageous nicknames, and
oh yeah,
a lot of times they're insulting, and it's just like, it's just funny.
Yeah, it's just funny. But like, yeah, we had the kid up the street that was just Gordo. Like that's your name forever. You have to deal with it. Yeah. So yeah, we had a whole bunch of names for people, and they were not all flattering if you translate them, but that's just what they got. And so it's pretty funny, but
now everybody's getting their feelings hurt about dumb shit.
Yeah, that's the problem.
It's just a joke, man.
It's just a joke. It's just a joke. People don't like it, and that's what you're saying. It's affecting people. And so there's people who come to me and ask me questions or ask me to look into things, and they're just totally not political people, but they feel it seeping into their life. If you have a medical condition and you can't wear a mask, or you can't get the required treatments that they want you to have, and then you don't think anything of it until you try to go on a cruise, or you try to go to get groceries or go to the gym, and then they're saying you have to have made this choice in order to participate in society.
You're like, how does it affect anyone but me?
That's the big question.
Power?
It's just control. It's just control. And so I feel for those people, and I hope that they start paying attention, and I hope that they advocate for freedom over control, because the people who want control just want the benefit for them.
I think the sucky experiences are what changes the culture, though. So
yeah,
it's like not fun at the time, but like after the last few years, how many people's minds have been changed?
A lot.
How many people's eyes have been opened up to like the reality of
what's going on
and all that. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I was like a super based conspiracy theorist guy for like 15 years or something.
Oh no, you were one of them. I mean, not quite to the level.
Yeah,
of
I was
most.
a non-political, just dude working, and doing all, my normal stuff. And then in my situation, it was when you were going to have our first child, and I had called ahead to figure out how much it was going to cost me via insurance and everything. And they told me, and I had really good insurance, so it was going to be just like a small deductible, and that's it. And I confirmed that with other coworkers that had the same insurance, and they said, yeah, that's all it was. And I was like, heck yeah, we're doing this. And then Obamacare rolled out, and the next year was when you were getting deeper into pregnancy, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, we restructured all this stuff with your insurance, and it's going to cost you a fortune now.
Mm-hmm. It was no longer a small deductible.
It was no longer a small deductible. It no longer covered 100%. Like, everything changed. And that's when I started paying attention. But it's something different for everybody. And I think that there's so many different things right now, as you said. It's affecting people that are not political. It's affecting people that don't feel on the right or left. But the culture is shifting, very strongly right now in a big response to all that's happened in the last 5 or 7 years with this craziness.
Despite all the sucky times in the past few years, I think it'll ultimately be good to kind of open people's awareness to the reality of stuff and push back on that, and like ultimately the culture will kind of decide what way stuff goes.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately it'll be good, but definitely not fun at the time to go through that essentially learning curve, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, the deprogramming of people from just like walking through daily life, not thinking about news and policy and what the people in charge are doing. Because I just didn't care. You know,
well, most people don't.
Most people don't.
Until it directly affects you in some way.
Yep.
Like, don't really pay attention to that or have time to or care.
Right. But this is the list, 25 reasons that the left has lost the middle and is ultimately losing the culture war. Keegan, thank you so much for joining me in stream. I know this is your 3rd video. I think you did great. I loved it so much.
Oh, thanks. It was okay.
And she provided the rough draft for the list anyway. So I was like, can you just join me in the video? I mean, you got all these extra points and knowledge and stuff.
Well, I think it's cool to see it all compiled because it kind of just happened over the course of a few years. And you're just like, wow, a lot of stuff's happened that's kind of really affected the culture that normal people know about. So let's just like compile it and go through it and see exactly how much stuff is really moving the direction of the culture. It's pretty crazy when you write it all down and see it.
Yeah, it's a long list, and we didn't even put everything in because...
No, it's just the main things that like most people know about or have heard of in the news.
If you want us to deep dive into a specific topic from the list, let me know in the comments. If you want another list, because there's enough to just make a completely full different list, let me know in the comments. And if you have any experience with any of the bullet points that really changed your perspective, I'd love to hear the story. I try to read all of the comments. But if you enjoyed this kind of video, please like, please subscribe, comment what you think, comment what you want to see next. And I can't say we.
Trying to commit me.
But I'll see you in the next video. We'll try to get Keegan again, ever, like next week or something. So.
Yeah. That's why I can't commit.
Yeah.
You have a schedule for me tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. No schedule. But thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. See you guys.